will not want to keep RS 2019-5059 on consent, so I'll go ahead and move that. As we go through resolutions, please let me know if any of these others need to come off the consent agenda. RS 2019-1574 authorizes the Director of Public Property or his designee to exercise an option agreement for the purchase of a flood-prone property located at 0 Rifle Range Road for Metro Water Services. RS 2019-1575 authorizes the Director of Public Property or his designee to exercise option agreements for the purchase of various flood-prone properties for Metro Water Services. RS 2019-1591 accepts a curbside recycling grant from TDEC to the Metro Public Works Department to fund the purchase of curbside recycling equipment. RS 2019-1592 accepts a grant for a recycling rebate from TDEC to Public Works to fund recycling education and the purchase of curbside recycling carts. RS 2019-1593 approves an agreement between the United States Department of the Army and the Metro Department of Water and Sewerage Services for the 7 Mile Creek Flood Risk Management Project in Davidson County. RS 2019-1594 accepts a grant from TDEC to Metro Nashville Water to replace 130 broken and missing tree grates with flexible porous paving. RS 2019-1595 abandons existing public utility easement rights for properties located at Demonbreun Street, unnumbered, and 1219 McGavick Street, formerly Alley 235. RS 2019-1596 authorizes HydroLive Nashville LLC to construct and install aerial encroachments at 212 Broadway. And that is it for resolutions. I would accept the motion to approve all of those on the consent. Got a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so we have done a whole bunch of work, 7 in favor, 0 against. Now let's go back to RS 2019-1559. We have an amendment on this. This modifies the master list of architects and engineers originally approved by RS 94-1050. So I would accept a motion on the bill as well as the amendment.
So moved.
Councilman O'Connell, Councilman Brogan moved to defer that to 2 meetings in Budget and Finance.
Okay.
I was going to bring that up.
And that did pass.
Okay.
So I think that's appropriate given the concerns that I have raised and my reason for filing the amendment.
Do you want to move to defer 2 meetings rather than 2?
Yeah, no, just to explain, we had a conversation. It had been 6 years since this list had been updated. And since we've had some issues with some of the contractors or engineers, we had some questions, and since it had been 6 years, I asked if we could just defer it a little bit further out so we could see kind of what was happening with a few of those, and they said there may be some projects coming up soon that might need some new people on the list, and so we asked for some of those projects and who might be coming up on the list, and if we could defer this for 2 meetings until we got that list, and so that's where we left it and got approved. So, motion to defer for 2 meetings.
All right. Did you all actually move the amendment as well, or just defer the whole package?
I think I had moved the amendment, but that Councilman Roten...
The amendment did not pass because I moved to defer this before we got to the amendment.
Got it. All right. So, at this moment, we have a motion to defer for 2 meetings. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I want to discuss.
Okay.
I sat through the whole budget committee meeting yesterday.
He did.
And I wouldn't let, then they voted on that and I couldn't speak, so it's my chance to speak. This is my committee.
Councilman, have you looked at our agenda?
I'll keep it short. I appreciate what Council Lady Henderson is trying to do. I know that that's not going to solve the fundamental problem that we're facing, because a company can buy another company and get on the approved list, and that all it takes. I mean, if we have an issue with the way procurement is doing things, then that's the people that we need to work with, change the rules, straighten the guidelines, work at enforcement, but just removing a name from a list is just not going to do the thing that we're trying to do, which is to eliminate somebody that we think might be wrong. And the other thing that concerns me is it politicizes the process of procurement. We shouldn't really use the political process to decide who gets to get hired or not. So I'm worried about that. I think personally that we shouldn't really use contractors for our work. Our employees should be hired by Metro. They should work for Metro. We should stop this practice where somebody gets hired and works for 20 years for Metro without getting all the benefits of working for Metro. I find that really bad policy. The idea of privatizing services goes against what most of us believe. I also think that it's important that we have a better approach to diversity in hiring for professionals. We should have more people from all backgrounds instead of the same old companies. But I honestly, although I agree with what you're trying to do, I just don't think, with all due respect, that this is the way to achieve that successfully. So that's what I was trying to say yesterday. People call my business all the time not all the time, but every so often to buy my company, so people can easily buy an architectural office and then get on the list, and you wouldn't know that it's owned by Collier. You know what I mean? So, or maybe you will know, but the point is that's not a good way to necessarily to deal with the bad apples. What we need to do is get the procurement office to have all the tools they need and demand from them that they follow certain rules on who do we want them to hire. So that's what I was trying to say yesterday.
I'm pleased to inform you that the entire committee assembled to hear your remarks.
Oh.
We had perfect attendance for that fourth.
And with that, I'll vote for the deferral.
Hey, Councilman McClellan, may I just respond briefly?
May.
I do appreciate your remarks. I feel like this was what was before us, right? And given the concerns in the community, internal to the Public Works Department, in the media, in the mayor's office, with our compliance officer. I mean, I did call and speak with Ms. Hernandez-Lane and ask if perhaps maybe deferring this might be prudent, given the fact that we had not updated it since 2012, and thus, you know, kind of what's the hurry at this juncture, given some of the concerns. And so, you know, what I understood from her that, you know, if going forward this comes back before us is, and what I was trying to do through my amendment was just to make sure for us as a body that we were not putting ourselves in a space where we were just tacitly approving kind of the advancement. So this update would have, you know, just some kind of minor, what's your address type things, but also it would have expanded Collier's capacity as to what it can bid on with Metro. So previously, you know, engineering work, this would have expanded into the architecture space. So I felt like in some regard that was an expansion, and that wasn't prudent at this juncture. I absolutely concur with you that we need to look at this more kind of robustly and deeply, and that is my intent. I think that, you know, this it's important, and something I did mention and kind of ties in with what you were saying. I think if we've taken 7 years to update this, it's incumbent upon procurement and Metro to put out a full call to all of Middle Tennessee, all of the region, to say, come and bid with Metro, right? And so to have just a open process wherein you invite those folks, so that when we are updating the list, it's not, you know, just a few firms that are interested in something that's coming up, you know, in the near term. So I think that is also incumbent upon us to make sure, because we never want there to be a perception that, you know, the same firms always get the work with Metro. And I think there is that perception out there in the community. So
It is more than a perception. I mean, I designed some of the schools that Metro uses when I was working for an architectural firm. And the public school system had a contract with a private company to provide engineering services. And it was the same person working year after year on these projects. And so I was like, why doesn't this person just work for public schools? Why do we need to have an indefinite contract with a company? I just don't think it's who we are as a city. We shouldn't be after trying to privatize all these services. If we have good people out there that can work for us, they should work for us. We should give them all the benefits that all the employees get, and instead of trying to get around this by using privatization. Now, some people may like the idea of privatizing. I just happen to think that we should treat our employees well and give them all the protections that they deserve. Now, if it's a one-time engineering need or architectural or legal need, then that's different. There is somebody that day after day, year after year, is the same person working for us. And that's the part where I think we should get away from it. We shouldn't do that anymore. So, but it's not related to this the legislation.
Right. At this moment, we have a motion to defer for 2 meetings. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, that brings us to a late filed resolution from Council Lady Henderson. A resolution calling upon the purchasing agent for the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, following independent review, to immediately suspend Collier Engineering Company, Inc. from consideration for awards of any and all contracts in the event probable cause for debarment is established, and to further declare existing contracts null and void should fraudulent conduct and or bad faith be established. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair O'Connell. I am not going to move forward with this at this time.
So are you withdrawing and the committee does not need to consider it?
That is correct, but it's something that I'm keeping top of mind. So.
Perfect. All right, thank you. That concludes the work on resolutions. We'll go to bills on second reading. First up is Substitute Bill 2018-1441. Amends chapters 1262 and 1284 of Title 12 of Metro Code of Laws regarding shared urban mobility devices. I see Councilman Elrod just outside the committee room. I'm going to invite him in.
Sorry, I had trouble finding scooter parking.
I would accept a motion, I suppose.
I would make a motion on my second substitute for its adoption.
Okay, we've got a
Second.
motion and a second, and now we can discuss. Councilman, did you want to give us an update? I know you have had some changes since last time.
And all the change, the biggest change was to take care of the legal issues that we had before. Basically, this ordinance does not get into regulating the number of operators or really the number of scooters. So, the way I have it set up is basically there are 6 or however many there is at the time of passage on third reading. Those numbers, everybody's locked in. If there is some kind of development legally, the Traffic and Licensing Commission can make changes to any new ones. It does not mandate it. The commission can just decide to keep going with it the way that number 7 can just be treated the same as number 6. That could be the rule. There are a lot of things in here as far as requiring Metro to come up with free-floating or designated or preferred parking areas. It also, it requires Metro to start a program and to report back to us. Talking with some folks, Peter Bird in Planning and others, they've already started some of that process. It also requires the Metro to develop a plan of no parking areas. They don't have to necessarily do it. I think, hopefully we may try the preferred parking areas, and if that doesn't take, then we have no parking areas. It also has that if there are no parking areas, that the operators will collect a $10 fine from anyone that parks in those areas, and that will be remitted to Metro every 30 days. There's the TLC has to come up with rules on hours of operation, where they can be operated. They have to purge duplicate accounts. There is one thing I filed an amendment on removing the driver's license requirement. That was at the request really of Walk Bike Nashville, as far as that might discriminate against folks that may not have a driver's license. This could be another option for them. So I don't want to restrict that, because these should be an option for people that don't have cars or don't want to have cars. So a driver's license to operate a motor vehicle, and we don't have a driver's license to operate a bike in the state. So I don't want to require that for scooters, and that was my mistake. Let's see, it makes various other changes. I think probably the last one, or two of them, it does create a traffic violation if you're motor or scootering under 18. And the other thing, probably the biggest thing, is it does put a sunset on this pilot program, a hard one of, if this passes second reading tonight, third reading in 2 weeks, the sunset would be 1 year from in 2 weeks. So it would be basically February of 2020.
Councilman, can you distinguish for me the late filed amendment from the second substitute?
Yeah, the late filed amendment takes out the driver's license requirement.
Yeah, okay.
So the idea behind the hard and fast deadline on the sunset is, we have 6 operators, we may have more. Do we have more?
There's one more in the wings.
I figured. There always is. Every time I talk to you, so I'm gonna stop talking to you.
Asking Billy,
Yeah, let me stop asking you.
cap it at one less than the number.
Yeah, so basically, it would give us a full year of data. All of the operators would have a year to operate in Nashville, and I think most importantly that we need a full summer of warm weather to see how these operate. Get data where they're going, who's using them, how many people are using them, and then we have time, through the winter and the fall after the election. I think it's important that we are able to evaluate the program, continue it as is. It just requires a resolution to extend it, but we are able to reevaluate at that time.
All right, Councilman, can I stop you just for a procedural issue? We are in the bill as substituted. Can I go ahead and also get someone potentially, I would welcome a motion to amend.
Move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second on the bill. So we are now on the second substitute as amended. Let me also just take a moment to credit Councilman Elrod as the key architect of the initial policy framework. This is really one of the most substantial revisions we've seen several months into it. We've obviously already collected a lot of public feedback, certainly departmental feedback, and I appreciate his work here. Discussion on this. Yes, he is on the master list of architects for policy.
Question, does this include a clarification about expansion, every expansion?
Yes, it does have that, yes. I kept that in. That was in there from the beginning, yes.
Okay, so
Or from the, yes.
So the TLC will be able to rule on whether they can expand from the initial 4, is it 500 now?
500 to 750 to 1,000. And basically, the legislative intent that you had, it's in there. Yes,
It's
ma'am.
spelled out now
Yes.
specifically, okay.
Mr. Chairman, one of the issues, we have a July report deadline.
Correct.
If we're going to move, just as we were talking, if we're going to move the sunset to next February, and if the summer, and I think you're right in terms of how does it work in the summer, and I don't know your procedures, but we may want to look at that July 1 deadline. And
We'll take a look at that after. Let's see if this goes forward.
I apologize.
All right.
But I take your concern. What I think may be a good idea is if the first permits were issued in October or August or September, is we may be able to, one of the things is asking for fee updates is if, you need more if you can report back, hey, we need fees to be X, Y, and Z, we can get in for those next permit holders when they come in to renew.
Perfect. I will say, in District 19, yes, sorry. Do we have Councilman Cooper? Go ahead.
Well, just the last meeting, encouraged people from the industry and nonprofits interested in the space to be here and give their opinion. And if it's acceptable to you, to very quickly, if they're particularly on the competitive level playing field aspects of the bill.
So I think most of those have now been removed from the bill. My sense, and I know Councilman Elrod, I think, has been very diligent about working with industry. I see several representatives here. Are there any profound objections? Does anybody want to speak to this bill? Is general satisfaction with where we are right now? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Frank Speak. I'm the Government Partnerships Manager for SPIN. I would just say that we've worked with Councilmember Elrod over the past couple weeks, and he's been great in hearing out our concerns. And we're very excited to work in Nashville and operate our system in the city. But yeah, it's been great working with you. So.
Otherwise, I'm not seeing a ton of energy. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll just add, Chair, what I've heard you say and what we've been talking, obviously, with Councilman Elrod and Billy about a lot is this sort of question, is this as good as it gets? I think some of the things in the bill we're considering today will help all the companies get together in conjunction with Billy and some of the other ideas that you and I have discussed that may be coming down the pike to really help improve what the perceptions of folks are seeing on the ground. And you have my commitment, and I believe a lot of the other folks in the room as well that represent the other companies to really try to collectively come together and make this work a lot better.
And to that point, I will note, this is not, Councilman Elrod's bill is not the end of the conversation in that regard. I know we've looked at some other approaches for, again, kind of targeted parking that Councilman Elrod mentioned. I think, to Billy's point, we might very well look at if the sunset is applied here, where does this go? And I appreciate that, because I think my sense from talking to multiple operators right now is that this is not as good as it gets. They can do better. There are some things Metro can do better, and this bill is a big step in that direction. So Anyhow, Councilor Henderson, I think you.
Yeah, I did have a question. I think it's related to Council Lady Allen's as far as the expansions and what happens at the Transportation Licensing Commission. Before that, are there a certain number of violations, say? And I know, the violation and how that's defined, determined, who documents that. That has also been a challenge in the short-term rental space, right? Set at 3, should it be at 2? Nobody can even, all that kind of stuff. And so I just didn't know where that conversation had kind of fallen out as it related to violations relatedly to expansion and how your commission is determining, what is that number? I mean, is it arbitrary? Is it 10? Is it 25? Is it 2? Is it, where are we on that conversation?
The ordinance requires the commission to establish a threshold. The threshold that the commission set for the company was 20. Now, the 20 are company violations. The difference is
In what
we
time-
also have,
In what time frame?
1 year. For a 1 year period. The challenge, though, is there are going to be rider violations that, and that's where the real challenge comes. At what point did the company cause this? What point did the rider cause it? And then and that's where we're continuing to work, trying to figure it out. You did adopt a rule if you wanted to.
What rule did you adopt?
So the rule provides that in terms of counting violations toward the 20 per year, violations that can be attributed directly to the certificate holder will count toward that number, such as violations that are documented to have been committed by their agents, or violations where they failed to remove a scooter 2 hours after being noticed to do so, things that we can clearly attribute directly to them. The issue that Billy was raising is, that's more complicated, is user violations. Yep. And so at some point, we determined that again, there would be kind of a threshold where user violations would amount to a failure to instruct on the part of the certificate holder. And so I think the threshold they came up with that, if I'm remembering correctly, is maybe 25 per month. 25. Documented user violations that can be attributed to a particular certificate holder would then count as a
Okay,
violation.
so basically to incent the companies to encourage better user behavior.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank
So
you.
25 per month over the course of a year to be 250, or just in the preceding month when they approach you about so 25 a month, how?
So staff would document the violations received in staff's office. I guess individual complainants come forward to the MTLC office. The MTLC would make the determination as to, and there has to be some evidence for the violations for them to count. Like it can't be, simply anecdotal unless it comes from a police officer, a public works employee, or a transportation licensing inspector.
And Councilor Henderson, I very much appreciate this inquiry. I think we're on a second substitute as amended.
Yeah.
I know there are enough things in here that are going to benefit particularly my constituents, also those kind of surrounding the urban core. My sense is with the work that's been done in this, it's not going to stop other technical corrections, including those that the commission is already empowered to take up on their own. I am happy to have discussion after the fact on that, but did you want to do anything that adjusts this bill to that effect right now?
I don't believe so, but I would also ask Councilman Elrod if we could, I would like to discuss further 18 years old versus, I know from a safety perspective, but I just, we let kids drive 2-ton cars at 16, so it does seem somewhat arbitrary that we're saying you can't operate a scooter, which is inherently less dangerous. Let kids ride bikes, so
I'm again sensitive to that. I think if you wanted to consider that, let's get it into either an amendment or a follow-up bill or something like that.
Yep, just wanted to bring that to his attention.
Totally,
Thank you.
totally
Yep.
appreciate it.
And
Thank
I
you.
guess, if I might, on that one issue,
Yes.
and I'm sure the companies have thoughts on this, but there was between a 16-year-old and 18-year-old is the ability to contract. And so if, that's why it's I would want it to be, the companies would want it to be 18 and above. A 16-year-old cannot contract with them and enter into any agreement that is binding. So therein lies your
Good
issue.
point, good point.
All right, very good.
O'Connell.
Yes.
My name is Max Lucen. I'm market manager for Lyft. I just wanted to echo what Sam had said about collaborating and working together, particularly on the parking issue. This is something that we're taking very seriously. I would also say that, just so everyone is aware, one of the things being worked on now is the 25 designated parking corrals, if you will, that will allow bikes and scooters to have designated areas to park. I'm optimistic, and I believe my colleagues are well, that we can make this a reality. That will take some effort. I believe some engineers are trying to get out some designs as we speak. But this is something we're very excited about, and we hope to see come to life really soon.
Committee, any other discussion? Again, I'm going to come back to, I think there's been a lot of work here. It has digested a lot of what has happened through the kind of the end of peak season and quiet period, and is a good step forward. So I'm excited to see this go forward. So
I just would like to again say how important I think it is. I'm appreciative that the TLC has included a user piece, because I think you guys can solve this problem a whole lot better than Metro can, and having the burden on y'all makes us partners, and I think that's really, really important. So I'll just encourage y'all to use all the cool technology things you can to
also
get
need-
those 25.
Yeah. We also need to make sure, though, that MNPD, part of our problem is
That the burden is
data,
not on them.
data input, right? Like, that MNPD doesn't have a data particular, so when somebody almost hits somebody on a bike, there's no data for that.
It just goes into
When somebody-
miscellaneous. Yeah, there's
right,
not a
goes
code
into all
for
this
it, yeah.
miscellaneous, right? So,
I think that's something we can address administratively.
yeah, we should do that.
So, all right, other key discussion, anything that we need to do to further amend this or that would cause concerns? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, we've got passage on that. I'm going to see if we can roll through a consent agenda. All right, appreciate it. Consent agenda on bills on second. Let me quickly, before we do that, Councilman Paul was here. All right, we'll come back to that. I'll let a few folks filter out. All right, we'll come back to BL 2019-1475. I know Councilman Hall was in here for just a moment on that. Others on second that I think we might be able to consider on consent, BL 2019-1480 authorizes the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights by negotiation or combination for use in projects of public works for Madison Station Boulevard. BL 2019-1481 authorizes the Metro government to acquire permanent easement rights, negotiation, condemnation, and acceptance for the Clean Water Nashville Central Wastewater Treatment Plant capacity improvements and CSO projects for 8 properties located on 1st Avenue North, 2nd Avenue North, and 3rd Avenue North. BL 2019-1482 abandons existing sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements, and to accept new sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, a fire hydrant assembly, and easements for properties located at 950 Brittany Park, 0 Bell Road, and 0 Blues Hole Road. BL 2019-1483 abandons existing sanitary sewer mains, storm sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements, and to accept new sanitary sewer and water mains, sanitary sewer manholes, a fire hydrant assembly, and easements for properties located at 151 1st Avenue South and 150 2nd Avenue South. BL 2019-1484 abandons a portion of 53rd Avenue North right-of-way and easement. BL 2019-1485 approves a Form Master Participation Agreement to be used by the Department of Water and Sewerage Services. Yes, Councilor Dan.
No, I'm sorry.
To enter into agreements with developers for the recuperation of costs associated with the Southeast Development Area and authorizing certain Metro government officials to execute the agreement in the form of the attached on behalf of the Metro government. Does anyone need to pull that one?
It was deferred
In budget
and finance. So we
Councilman
might
Dow
not.
asked for,
your participation
Yeah,
agreement.
please don't do that. That's in my district.
I'm
was-
content to personally leave it on consent and see what happens on the floor. I don't know if that means it's going to be deferred by rule anyway. I'm not 100% sure.
Well,
I'm content for this committee to pass it unless there is good reason not to, and if you And Councilman Cooper, any updates from Budget and Finance?
Well, without Mike here, I believe it was deferred at Council Lady Dowell's request by the committee, so I'm not sure what process effect there is.
This is, my district was impacted by a project on her district that is called Century Farms. And it really created a problem with the water capacity in my district. And so now I have a problem. I asked I asked water to fix it. They went and talked to the developers who agreed to pay for increasing the capacity. And so this is something they are doing to help people in my district so they don't get stuck with the middle of a shower without any more water. So I would like us to just move forward and get it
Okay.
done.
Well, I'm happy for this committee to hear it on the floor.
There might
Anderson may
be,
be a
right, we might
process.
by rule have to defer it.
But to that end, it did sound like an extremely, with Council Lady Henderson's questions, an extremely fine participation agreement, I must say.
It doesn't cost Metro
100%.
any money.
Right,
Exactly.
100% on the part of the developer.
And that's a fantastic standard that I think we should all keep in mind. In a rapidly growing area that has poor infrastructure, to have the development community pay 100%. With that, I'm content to pass it from this committee. I mean, I want us to learn from what sounds like a completely fabulous participation agreement.
All right, noting that, any further discussion?
I move approval.
All right, yes.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we approve. We will see what happens on the floor. And let's see, we might have to defer 1475 by rule. I do not have a letter on that. I'm going to give Councilman Hall one more chance later because we've got a bill on third reading. To Councilman Cooper's point, Bill 2018-1442 approves the acquisition of interest in a parcel of real property from four parties and approving a participation agreement, a license agreement, and an easement agreement, all between the Metro Government and Uptown Property Holdings LLC and in connection with the development of the Nashville Yards project in downtown Nashville. This has been re-referred to Public Works Committee on third, and I would accept a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, now we can have a discussion.
Yes. Want to introduce the amendment? H.
Councilman O'Connell, may I move my amendment number C, please?
Yes, so we've got Amendment C has been proposed, and we had A, B, and C, and correct?
And H.
And H was late filed in planning, correct? Okay.
Actually, I'm not sure it's H, but it refers to a section H.
Subsection
We'll call it
H,
H.
we'll call it
Subsection
late
H.
filed.
Right.
All right.
Colleagues, Amendment C, per your original amendments packet, was the last page. So Amendment C is facing you, and then on the back side, there is Exhibit B, which was appended to the participation agreement. So just for your reference, I think that's helpful for our discussion. Because it shows in line the edits that are being proposed.
All right, so am I correct then, Council Aide, that at the moment, we are not considering amendments A and B?
I do not believe so. I think it was withdrawn.
They all three failed in the budget.
Right, but any of them could be moved in this committee.
Sure, yeah, but
But A was withdrawn
A was withdrawn.
and replaced by this late filed
Okay.
amendment.
And Council Lady Allen, did you want to also have the late file be considered? Was
Yes,
that your
when
amendment?
we're through with Amendment C.
All right, so I'm not hearing any interest in moving B, and Council Lady, you are moving C. It sounds like we'll move the late file amendment. So let's try, so did you have a motion on C?
I would move Amendment C, please.
Waiting for a second on C.
C, a second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second on C. Council Lady Henderson.
Alrighty. As we discussed at length in Budget and Finance yesterday, I was able to follow up on a memo that was given to me by Mr. Sturdivant on January 14th. I'll bring that to colleagues' attention. If y'all might share that. that was in an effort to really, to the extent possible, to kind of itemize and pull out all these various kind of buckets and what that meant, what was in this $15,250,000. We did have some questions, I guess, at our last round of budget and finance, and again at Public Works last time. And I think what I kind of pointed to for that was just somewhat of a, peeling back the onion. And so I did express appreciation yesterday, and I will say that again to the Water Department for getting back to me very specifically on all the various pipes and all the different streets and really kind of all the, the hard cost. And so what I had shared in Budget and Finance yesterday was that I think a participation agreement here is a good thing to do. But most especially in the water services space. Okay, so from an alignment perspective, as far as aligning our infrastructure, I think that makes good sense. And so when the Water Department was at the negotiation table, they negotiated a 50% participation to be no more than $3.25 million. So I did not kind of get that last level of detail till Monday. So this was amended on Friday, a timely amendment, just looking at some of the concerns around some of the public works infrastructure that we were including in this participation agreement. And I guess, my concern comes in that, all across this county, we are asking, and not in fact asking, requiring developers of, multifamily and commercial developments of all scales. They are required to build sidewalks. And so, the fact that, for a development of this size, there would be a need to further incentivize the infrastructure that is required, given all the concerns that we have with capital needs throughout our county, that just became concerning to me. I do respect Councilman O'Connell that downtown is a neighborhood too, but I do feel like this council has worked really hard to have a transparent and objective process for our sidewalk infrastructure. I think we should absolutely get there also for our roadways budget and for our intersection improvements. Those buckets, in my view, are still a little too slushy. But effectively, if you are a kind of preferred developer, or you make an effort to have access to the mayor's office, you can negotiate a deal that you effectively go to the front of the line, right? And so, the intersection improvement at 10th and Broadway, respectfully, any other development of this scale, if it was generating more traffic, they'd have to pay for that traffic signalization themselves and install that. And the cost to Metro is after the fact, because it is all in the public right of way. We inspect and accept it, and then we have to maintain it in perpetuity. That is our responsibility. That's our fiduciary duty. That's our cost over time, and it's immense, right? So why are we then, for things that we require of any and every other developer all across this county, why are we affording special opportunities here? So as you'll see on Exhibit B, kind of on the back, basically what I did with Mike's help and getting feedback from Public Works was went in and took out kind of the sidewalk and streets piece, took out the traffic signalization, took out the project construction management. That gets a little in the space of what Councilman Bedney and I were talking about, and Director Sturdivant, in response to questions our last round, when I asked about that particular line item and some concerns about, who would Metro be having to do that. So, from a construction management standpoint, the Water Department does that internally with staff, right, with Metro Water staff. Public Works was apparently going to have to do that with a contractor. And so, having expressed concerns at Budget and Finance last time, Director Sturtevant came back and got the number 944,926 all the way down to 100K in one day. So what that tells me is that was not an essential cost. So that is also likewise removed. So I guess, I frankly feel that, we should be amending this to an even lower amount, respectfully. I think it should be the 3.25 for water and a little wiggle room in there too, maybe like about $5 million. But what you have before you is taking something that was, 16,693, then got down to 15.52, and now through my amendment, brings it down to 11,487. That is still very generous, colleagues. And so, it's not that, I don't believe this project, doesn't happen because of this reduction. And I think it's fair, and I think it's fiscally prudent of us to do it. And so with that, I would renew my motion for that amendment.
Mr. Chair, as I do respect my colleagues' work on this, you did quite a bit. However, my issue is more of a project, and not necessarily this project, but why this project, or are we setting some type of precedent? We have project managers, we have project auditors. I would assume each department has project managers that oversee the cost of these projects, and that's where we, as a body, have to rely on their expertise. And if there does seem to be some sort of I don't want to say negligence, but some sort of skewed process, then we address the process with them. But if we're going in and start looking at each individual project, and we're basically eliminating the project managers their responsibilities and saying their expertise, either it's not warranted or they're not good enough. I don't think that's good. I hate to say this word. It's not good politics for a government to be micromanaging, and I don't like using that word either, but controlling projects in this manner, especially ones of this magnitude, because you have to admit, you got to stay right on top of this, and this on projects this large, and I just don't see this body being able, maybe this one today, but I'm talking about if we start doing this more and more, the next term, they won't take on that responsibility, and therefore here we are. Now you're really in trouble. You have project managers that have been doing zero, or haven't been actually performing their task, relying on council to be doing that when council's not doing it. But I'm simplifying that.
Talking specifically about the project construction management line item that's being removed?
Yeah, I'm talking about how we're going in, delving in on each individual project.
Is it not incumbent upon us to understand exactly how the taxpayer dollars are being spent?
Yes, it is understanding, but not controlling, unless it's obviously.
Basically, I'm asking too many questions and too much due diligence.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it's okay to be informed, and it's okay to be inquisitive and to know how these things are. That's great, but to actually take over the project manager's job on it, I can't. I'm sorry, I just can't.
I'm not attempting to take over that role.
That's my perspective.
Okay, yeah, but we have a fiduciary duty to make sure that these are structured in a way that it's a good investment of Metro's dollars. So.
And I understand I understand that you're interested in it and you're wanting to protect it. However, that's the job of, we hire these people to do that. Are you saying that they are not capable, that they're not doing it?
I don't think they're doing as good a job as they should in the public works space, specifically.
Then you need to be talking to the director.
I have talked to the director.
Let me finish, please. Talk to the director of Public Works and say, you need to get you better fill that position with someone more knowledgeable in what they're doing, rather than us being the ones to do it.
And I'm going to turn to Representative of Public Works.
Yeah, so just as a point of clarification, on the project management aspect of this, Public Works has every intention of providing oversight and filling that project management role internally.
Excellent.
Our development staff consists of 5 or 6 individuals who are reviewing every set of plans for everything that's being built in this city. It's a rather small staff. So in the event that there was a time-sensitive set of review that needed to be accomplished on this project, it's possible that an outside entity might come in to assist, but the project will be overseen by Public Works staff, Devin Doyle.
Great.
Most definitely.
You guys are very capable, so I appreciate that.
So to that point, I might pose a question. You know, it was my understanding that some of the project management that in there is really the day-to-day coordination about utility placement and on the spot, you know, programming and in-field meetings and things like that that really are handled by the folks that are on the ground.
Which Metro
folks.
taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for, right?
And that's
Respectfully.
not really what we're here to represent. But the project management line item that you see on that memo does not represent money that we will be spending toward Metro contractors. Just to clarify.
My sense is that there is probably some disagreement both within this committee and within the body as we get to the floor on this, if this advances, that this is a worthwhile investment. As somebody who's been a part of this conversation for well over a year at this point, I mean, I look at it and say, yes, sometimes scale does matter, and that there are times when you leverage that scale to get improvements that might be further down the CIP priority list. However, I don't think it's about, and I absolutely appreciate the intensity of transparency focus on is this an access issue or not, but I think from a site perspective, we just don't have that many undeveloped or extraordinarily available for redevelopment multi-acre sites left in the urban core, and when we do get them, I think it is actually the responsible thing to do to seek to participate with the developer to create the best infrastructure we can for the city. So to that end, I am not for Amendment C and wasn't in budget finance either for that reason. So I understand we're going to go forward with this agreement on this. Other core points of discussion here in this committee on Amendment C.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be for Amendment C because I think it is unfair to the taxpayers of the general fund to reimburse the developer for the sidewalk costs when we require all other developers to pay this out of their pocket. Many of those developers have fewer resources, and that on a objective standard to reimburse one for sidewalks when we require everybody else to do sidewalks is inconsistent and will lead to the undoing of our sidewalk policy at this point. If I was a developer and I heard about this, every one of them, I would go and say, reimburse me for my sidewalk.
I suspect Metro would say, great, come to the table with $300 million plus of property tax.
Well, it's a matter of proportionality. They will come to the table with property taxes also too in proportion. And once you set up a pretty hard rule, which I appreciate Council Lady and this committee and you helping to establish, I think you have to be consistent in its application.
And I've said this before, I think there are times when it is actually appropriate to create those exceptional circumstances, and this is one.
I would just add to that, the context I think that's key here is that they're doing $80 million worth of infrastructure, and I think we could say to people who want to say maybe we shouldn't have to pay for this sidewalk, we'll say, great, if you're doing 4 times as much in infrastructure in the area that will benefit other people, and if you're creating the opportunity for us to do infrastructure work that otherwise is going to cost us 4 times as much because there's a building in the way, there's a benefit there that is unique to this project that doesn't typically come up with other sidewalk projects or other building projects where there's a simple, this is the one thing we're doing to help with the infrastructure there. I mean, they're doing an immense amount of water and sewer separation and street work and other things that totals that 80 million. To me, I think that makes a fundamental
And
difference.
their
It doesn't give
clients
everyone
and
other
tenants
people.
will
The offer.
handsomely reimburse them for that.
And that will come to us in property taxes, which will more than pay back this $3 to $5 million a year that we're paying on this. I mean, I think to look at the net benefit is to say ultimately down the line, this will generate net money for schools and pay raises and all the other things that we need. And that we miss an opportunity to participate in making something happen that we need.
And I appreciate that very much.
And I just want to back up because I keep forgetting to say, I'm so appreciative of all the amazing work that Councilmember Henderson has done in delving into this. And I appreciate the scrutiny you've put into this.
But
I feel like just because we can break this down into lots of numbers doesn't necessarily mean that we're looking at the true cost of making sure that this gets done.
Matt Wilshire has all schooled us that you do incentive money, but for it would happen. I believe this would happen anyway. And the sidewalk piece alone, those sidewalks represent what would have been Metro General's capital ask for the last year. So you're spending, you could have it in new beds, or you can have it in reimbursing $1 billion project for their sidewalks.
And then in 3 years, and again, we might quibble over the but-for, you are focused exclusively on the present-day investment and not the return that would come from the but-for investment that is there. And there, I don't know of some objective way to measure the but-for. That is left up to us to discuss and decide.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Call the question on the amendment.
All right, we've got a call for the question. All in favor of calling the question, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the question has been called. We are voting on Amendment C. It has been moved, properly seconded, and discussion is ended. All in favor of Amendment C, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right. Amendment C will not be applied in this committee. And now we will move on to a late filed amendment. Councilor Allen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is this is an amendment that grew out of the Amendment A, which had requested that we ask the developer to participate in our Equal Business Opportunity Program, which is not actually ready to go yet, and because they're a private entity, we can't legally do that, but they had sent a letter already ahead of time saying that they were committed to being an equitable partner in that, and that they had already spent $10 million worth with organizations that fit within the categories, and they were committed to spending the full $15.25 million reimbursement on that. And so, based on their support for that and Mr. Jameson's understanding of what the legal words needed to be, this amendment, Amendment H, actually changes adds subsection H to the participation agreement that simply says that they will voluntarily do that, which fits all the legal requirements of what we can say.
And am I to take this as a motion to approve this amendment?
And I made a motion to approve this amendment. Sorry, I
Get
thought
a
I did
second on that?
Thank you.
Second.
Got a second? And now discussion based on Council Lady Allen's description. All right, hearing none, I think it got a lot of attention in Budget and Finance. All in favor of the late filed amendment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that passes, and we are now on Bill as amended, BL 2018-1442, previously amended by Councilman Mendez, and now with a late filed amendment applied. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Hearing none, all in favor of BL 2018-1442, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Got 2 noes. All right, and the motion is recommended by this committee. And now we will come back to Councilman Hall. We have Bill 2019-1475 on second reading. Councilman Hall, did you want to speak to this, or just?
Just briefly, I am going to defer this 2 meetings. What we've done is had some great conversations with Metro Water. We need to continue those conversations with Public Works just to make sure we're not having any undue impact on other projects. And so we're really close to working out that language. And we just want to be a good
committee to defer for 2 meetings.
Yes. There's a twice cut one.
I would accept the motion.
Move deferral for 2 meetings.
All right. Got a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we defer for 2 meetings. That concludes our business.